Welcome back, guys, to the Bear and Scully podcast with me, Sean Scullion, aka Scully, Owen Mallon, aka the Bear, Aidan, the face for radio behind the scenes, and today we're joined with Reggie Clark. Reggie, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
This isn't our first time meeting.
No.
You were at the live show, so you were,
Yeah.
and it was good, old night's crack, and then we got talking, and we thought, why don't you come on the show?
This is my first time coming to Cookstown. So.
Good.
Sunny Cookstown. You'll have to put it, that's one of them ticked off your bucket list. But Reggie, before we jump into it, guys, before we get into today's pod, I have to hit you with the sales pitch.
Patreon.
We have our Patreon up and live now, and we're working hard behind the scenes, doing our follow-up interviews with other podcasts where any questions you have, and if there's any podcast that significantly struck a chord with you and you were like, I'd like to know what happened then, why don't you drop us a message? Why don't you ask us a question? Why don't you subscribe to the Patreon? It's £3.50 a month, and you get all that extra content. And I say much more, but I asked Sean
What is much more?
I think that's a sales pitch. Much more. I've told you what we're doing, and
You're getting all
more.
this
It's just
and
like
much
I'm beefing it up.
more. Right.
We do want to make the Patreon that more personal, that more interactive, that if you have a question for a certain guest and for the likes of Reggie, if you knew he was coming on, we would do a private thing, say Reggie's coming on, and you want to ask him questions about it, then we would be fit to put them till Reggie, and we will be fit to credit the person that's coming. So if it's something you want to do, jump on. If it's not, make sure you're subscribed. So look, Reggie, that's the sales pitch done. We look, from what we know, you've already lived quite a life. So but before we go into that, let's just go all the way back to the start, where you grew up, and give people an idea of who you are and where you're from.
Well, I'm originally from a place called Portsmouth, Virginia. It's more of a Navy type town. My father was in the military in the Navy, and we grew up there. And I went to college there, went to high school there. Related to high school, I went to. This was around the time when they were integrating, in the late 1960s and 70s, where the state or the government started to force integration. Because what was happening is the money was going to the schools that were, in the suburbs, which was predominantly white, and the black schools were getting nothing, and that's why integration was forced and pushed, and you started having the blacks being bused to the suburbs, and the white students were being bused to the black schools, and ironically, I was the first class president of one of the black college high schools. I went to Booker T. Washington in Norfolk, Virginia, and we had the first integrated prom, whereas before when you had a prom, you had all whites going to their school, to their dances, and you had blacks going to theirs, because the schools were segregated. Yeah. And so what I did when we had the first integrated prom, I made sure that it wasn't just going to be black music. It was going to be somebody who could perform music that everybody would enjoy. And it was one of the best proms where you had them actually coming to the prom. Because when they first actually were bused to our school, they would just get on the bus and go back to the suburbs. They wouldn't go to the basketball games. They wouldn't go to the football games. They thought that, from what people would show on TV and give them the impression that most black people weren't interested in education, but then when they realized that we're all the same, we're going to class and we're learning the same thing. But the one plus that came out of integration was when they bused the whites to the black schools, we started getting all these other courses that we would not have gotten. Normally, we would only get French and Spanish, whereas when they bused the whites from the suburbs, we got German. We got all these extra languages that we would have never known about until they integrated the schools, which was a positive for.
Was there much upheaval in that? Because the only view that we ever had, and this is how blinkered it is, like I've watched one or two, like Remember the Titans, and it's a very glamorized view of integration, and I'm sure it didn't go across as easy as that. But what was that? What was that like? It's bound to have been weird when that was all kicking off. Was there?
Well, one of the things is, ironically, blacks tend to be very good at sports, and I'm not saying white people aren't, but I'm just saying related to basketball and stuff. Even when they had the schools where there was predominantly white, they wanted to get certain, athletes so they could be competitive, and that was one of the things that I think that helped to improve integration, where as people feel that, we work, I'm going to predominantly not a black school now. I'm going to a predominantly school that used to be black, but I'm part of the whites that I'm part of it, and they started coming out to the basketball games. They started coming out to the football games because they thought that they had to get on the bus because they thought they were going to get beat up and shot and everything else because of what you see on TV. Sometimes TV shows and movies give the wrong impression of what is actually going on, in the world.
What type of state is Virginia? Was it a hot?
Yes.
I know that along that they call the belt or whatever.
Yeah,
right?
it's the South. Yeah.
Yeah.
but it's not as bad as Mississippi. I don't know if you ever saw a movie called Mississippi Burning.
No, I never did.
Well, believe me, you need to watch it one time and you'll see. My father's mother was from Mississippi. I used to hate to go down there because it was so racist. And it's still that way, even today. I saw 2 articles today where there's one guy he got arrested, but he made a black person who he had arrested lick urine on the floor. Luckily, there was a video there, and he got caught, and now he's been arrested, and he's been put in jail for 1 year. But this is still happening. This is the mentality of people in America right now. Some people in America, not all. If you look at, one of the problems in it, you see a lot of problems related to policing and all that. Unfortunately, you got the 5 or 10% that are still racist and bigoted, that they make it look bad for the 90% that are not.
But and like that is in so many things it is the small minority. There is a lot of similarities between Northern Ireland past, not racially motivated but religiously motivated, and there has been a lot of similarities where we've had to have integration in school, and we've shared experiences where that people in power were predominantly one or the other, and it was a small proportion of them that so there is very similar traits in not racially motivated but religiously motivated in the past that you had. But how have you experienced then? You grew up there, and it was in the military. Were you in the military?
No. My father was in the military, and like I say, I went to college. I was a math major. I graduated, and luckily I've worked for quite a few large corporations. General Motors. I worked for Xerox. I worked for Exxon, and then I got an opportunity to go work overseas, and I saw this. A friend of mine was saying, "Oh, go ahead and take it for a couple of years," and I saw the opportunity to go work in Saudi Arabia, and I actually applied and got offered the job, and was working with the Saudi Navy through a military contract, though.
When was this?
This was in 1981. That's when I first moved and started working overseas, and I've been living overseas since 81.
Not to pray, or what age were you then when you?
Jesus, 54, 74, 84. I was about less than 27 or 27, yeah.
And like Saudi Arabia back then, it's not, a lot of people now, all these developed countries they're building that new state of the art, like that new utopia style city. I'm sure it wasn't like that back then.
Well, it wasn't. No, it wasn't like that then. But they were starting to build. I was when I was working there. You had a lot of money that was there. And because one of the things that happened, I was working for another company called SABIC, which is a Saudi Arabian chemical company. And before, what they used to do, and Aramco, they used to burn off the extra gas. And then they realized, we can make plastics, we can make all of these other items. And they started fueling that in and created these other corporations there. And I was there mainly to train Saudis. So my job was really to train myself out of a job. Took 20 years, but
So what exactly was it you were doing?
My background was IT computers, so I was doing helping to implement software. When I worked with the Saudi Air Force, I was on the flight line when the first AWACS aircraft came in because I was helping with the logistics systems and maintenance systems. The F-15s and F-16 aircraft over there. I would be supporting the software related to keeping them up and running, because the C-130 aircraft, because all of those, most of those aircraft coming from America, which means that all of the equipment and support, items were coming from, from the logistics companies. I mean, locations in America, and they were tied in with the, with the U.S. government. When they, if you needed a new engine for an F-15, it wouldn't be like it actually be coming from, Boeing or whatever. It'd be coming through the military system. And so, we had to make sure that we could tie all of that in, so that all of the equipment and stuff was coming in and tied in together.
And what was that like then, moving to Saudi? Were you on your own, or your partner at this time, or?
Ironically, I started off on my own, and but ironically, that's when I met my wife there, and around 86, 87. That's when I started coming over to Northern Ireland. That's when I started coming over here, because she was a nurse over there, and we just started coming back and forth over here, and we got married in 1990 in America. And but because it's very little, like I say, people can tell me about Northern Ireland, because I pretty much know quite a bit of it. I know about the history of things.
Is your wife Saudi? Is your wife Saudi?
No, my wife's from here. That's the only reason why I'm here.
Right. Because what I was thinking there was, you've come from America over to Saudi Arabia. They've went and got a dartboard, and they're like, we're going on holiday where this lands up. They're like, Jesus, where is Northern Ireland? Because I couldn't see the thing. So she was out working in Saudi.
She was a nurse, an ICU nurse. Yeah, she was working for one of the hospitals there, and we met there. Because, like I say, in Saudi, even though it was very stringent in terms of how they tried to treat people. I mean, all of the expats. We used to have parties together, and
because it is a very religious country.
Yes.
And I know now, like, people are going to Abu Dhabi or in Dubai, and there's a more modern approach to that, but that would not have been the situation then. But
no alcohol back then.
Well, no alcohol legally.
Legally.
I
think there's a story behind this.
Yeah.
Doing a bit of brewing.
Yeah. What is it? It's a special name that y'all call it.
Poaching?
Yeah.
Moonshine?
No,
but we call it poaching.
Yeah, people used to make that, but if you get caught making it, you're going to jail.
Just don't get caught then?
Well, some people used to get caught, The problem was, the Saudis knew about it, but as long as you didn't actually bring it up so that it would impact their people, they kind of turned their heads, to the compounds where they knew it might have been going on. I used to make my own wine. And if you go to the grocery store and you see somebody with a case of this special Roch juice, you know what they were going to do.
Yeah.
But like, as you're saying that, and something I found, even traveling and speaking to people in the likes of the Emirati countries, stuff like that, they're very much respect our culture. Don't be pushing your culture to our culture. Come here, pay and play, but just be respectful. So a lot of what people's misperception was that they have a very strict, and they govern themselves by them religious laws. But it's, if you keep that away from us, but if you start rolling down Main Street with a bottle of poaching for sale, you're going to get in bother.
That's true. Because even though you could buy alcohol, but normally we would buy it from the military people, because military people would get an allotment of 4 or 5 bottles per person, and they would be selling it to us for about $100 a bottle, whereas it might cost maybe $10 or $15, but they weren't on good salaries like we were, and we could afford it, and so you'd buy it.
But you lived there for quite some time. So what made you make the decision to move to sunny Ireland?
Well, the wife had got tired of not being able to drive, and my daughters were at the age, school age, right at the school age.
So you had children out there?
Yeah, I got 2 kids.
So you went back to America, and, well, not back to, she wasn't from, you went to America and got married?
No, I just went to America and got married, but, we were still working in Saudi, and both of my daughters were born in Saudi. Yeah, because I told him, you could have
What?
had a Saudi passport and an American passport and a British passport, and you could have an Irish passport if you wanted it.
That'll be some handling getting through security. And just the mix of cultures that's going on there. But like, and then I suppose then there was schools and English speaking schools. What language then were they? Was it English?
Yeah. They'd have an English international. They have international schools
Yeah.
in Saudi Arabia, and there'll be, people will be going there.
What age was your girls then when you decided to make that decision?
Well, my oldest daughter was at 6, because then when we moved here, she ended up going to school in Beaver, in Belfast area.
Isn't it? It's weird, and I think this is an Irish thing, and definitely an Irish mummy thing more, that they want to return to nest when when children are of age. There's so many expats of Irish around the world, in Sydney, Australia, and all, and they do all the partying. So it's like they go through a cycle of the just arrived, the partying, then move job and start settling down, get a decent place. They're no longer in service, wherever it is, and they meet somebody. More likely, they met someone from 100 miles down the road. They've travelled half the world, and then married. Then it's a bit more serious to come home for a thing, and then have a baby, and then after a while, baby is great, toddlers and all, because it's so much nicer to walk a toddler around. But when it comes to school time, there's almost like I want them schooled the way I was schooled, or and it's that the draw of home becomes the thing then. But I'm not 100% sure, because my sister's actually going through that cycle at the minute. She's in San Francisco, and she's been there 12, 13 years. She loves it, but she's had a wee baby now. But she's like, I don't know if I want her to go to school here or want to school at home. So was it something similar like that there for the wife? She wanted once they were there, wanted to come home here?
No, really. It was just a question. She had enough of Saudi Arabia, and it was just a question of where will we move to. And the reason we moved here was because I was still doing IT consulting work in the Middle East. And, when you've been traveling for 20 years, an 8-hour flight is better than a 13-hour flight.
Yeah.
Because I used to, back in those days, they used to have a Pan Am flight that would fly from Dhahran to New York, and it was a 13-hour flight. We would always take that, because we'd get straight into New York, and then I could take a short flight down into Norfolk. And so when you look at an 8-hour flight going back and forth, because I was still doing a lot of consulting work in the Middle East, it was worth the 5 hours.
Yeah.
of not being being in the air.
Yeah. But then that's the 80s, then late 80s, that you've come back to Northern Ireland, isn't it?
99 is when I moved here.
99. Oh, yes. So you started coming into
87. I moved. I mean, I was coming back and forth because I had met my wife. We hadn't gotten married yet, but when we got married in 1990. Like I say, then we was coming here every year, visiting her family, and then we go to America, and see my family.
You would have seen some change in that era of 89, 90 till to 99, going through the peace process,
yes.
to the changes. They were quite for us living through it. We were younger, and it's not a massive recollection, but looking back on it, there was some changes going on in Northern Ireland. And was the fact that the peace agreement happened, did it help for the coming back for you, or?
Well, because when I first started flying over, when I would come into the airport, you had to go through security. You had the police there, going through the security gates, going to the airport and back, and which was new to me. And
all the checkpoints.
Yeah, the checkpoints. Yeah, and then I moved here in '99, which was 1 year after the peace agreement had been signed. So, since then, I have seen quite a few of the changes that have occurred. But, and even before that, I would follow up on most things that were going on, because my wife was from here, and so I would just keep abreast of what I was coming across, coming to when when I'm coming in.
What was it like, Reg? Because back then, now Northern Ireland's become such a multicultural nation, but not then. Like, you would have literally been the only black man coming through the airport, and I don't mean that in a thing, because and people are saying this, and it's so funny now. We're in a day and age, we have to be so politically correct in what we say, and if there's something I say, Reg, that's not like me, there's no problem, but I don't have bad intent in anything I ever say. But when you're saying these things, people are like, But back then, there wouldn't have been. You would, what way was it for you then? Was there like because you've come from different cultures and you've seen people, and then all of a sudden you come to our backwards, the only way I could describe it.
Well, see, I wouldn't call it, see, what's interesting is, I've got quite a few friends here from both sides of the community. Now, from the Catholic side of the community, as I've told them, a lot of the problems that they ran into are no different than the problems that black people ran into. Even when they talk about, one of the things that I know people that say they would never want to go and work. Where is it? The place for the shipyard.
Oh, the docks, yeah.
Yeah, they would never want to go there if they were Catholic because they know they wouldn't. They couldn't go work on the Titanic because they know they wouldn't get out of there. Yeah. And those are some of the problems that we used to have in America. There were certain places. If you're black, you don't want to go in there because you won't get out. And even when I was growing up in certain certain communities, you just don't go into that area. And things have changed now, but I can see I see quite a few similarities of what has gone over in over here and what went through in America. And it's it was discrimination. I mean, some of the Catholics have been discriminated against. It's a given. And you can't dispute that. Your things have changed. Right now, but back in those days, there was somewhat of a double standard. But people don't want to say that.
A civil rights struggle, if there's an imbalance in civil rights in any, it doesn't matter, it leads to that sort of, no
matter what color you are,
the right to vote, the right to housing, the right to health, the right to job, the right to prosperity. It should be, no matter who you are, what you are, your skill set should be the determination that, not the color of your skin or the religious values that you hold. I know because me and Sean always be like, dodge the political bomb that's been, which is a very loose term, but but we're disputing, we're talking facts, and this is well documented fact. Like the right to vote, the right to housing, the right to jobs was up until, and that was what caused unrest and things. So it is a very, very similar thing, a very similar situation, and like so many cultures and societies, it's changed that. It's trying to find out how to live with each other and how to thing. But you're in that, so you've seen that. But what was the reception like to you?
Well, see, one of the things is, I grew up during the Black Panther time, so but the way people viewed the way America tried to view Black Panthers was as though they were, going around killing everybody. Where really, if you look at the history, you will see that the Black Panthers grew up trying to really improve the quality of people in their community. It wasn't a fact of trying to go after the police.
That leads us back to that 5%. Where there's 5% were really brutally aggressive and it gave a bad name to the and I get what you're saying. The movement itself wasn't an aggressive fish, but some of what it incurred then, and there was so much going on then. But it's always the same way.
Yeah. Well, but then you had the government who with J. Edgar Hoover who was going. He didn't only go after Black Panthers, he went after the Kennedys and everybody else, so you had that corruption within the U.S. government that, that people would overlook, but other things, like I say, but what I see between, what I've gone through in America and what, I think what people have gone through over here in, in Northern Ireland, like I said, there's been a major improvement. They've identified things that need to be addressed, to put everything on an equal keel. And, gradually you're getting there, but you look at politics, sometimes I used to joke about the politics over here, and then when Donald Trump won, I had to shut up. And I might have to shut up again.
No, because, and this is the thing, I would often say that I think politics in this country is the shackle to the past.
Yeah.
Because the only thing that keeps their power and them in place is playing that green and blue or that or it was green and orange politics. But we're I think we're on the cusp of a different age. Like we have children attending like integrated things that's not even it's not even thought about. It's not done now where it actively had to be done. It's done now because their friends are here or their friends are there. You're
my kids have no idea. Even just you were saying about whenever you come to Ireland and going through security, so the checkpoints. So Cookstown at that time, like me and Owen, we were probably
one way
at the tail
in,
end
one
of
way
it.
out.
It was one way in and one way out at Cookstown. So there was concrete bollards put on each of the wee side roads. Cookstown Main Street, what is it, 2 mile long, 3 mile long?
So they had
as long as straight.
one at the top, one at the bottom, checkpoint.
And they had checkpoints. So these were towers. They were towers set up, and the army was standing, stopping everybody. But I'm going to that story because my uncle, he actually lived in Philly for years. So he did. And I mind he actually come home at one stage. And I don't know whether he was drinking or what it was, but he had got a flight home. And I think this is the right story. But he had come down the middle of the street and either fell asleep or what and drove into the checkpoint. And they jumped out and they were going to shoot him. They thought that he was somebody who was trying to drive into them and kill them. So he came down the street and straight into the checkpoint, crashed in it. And the British Army jumped out with guns and they were going to shoot him. They thought that he was like a bomber or whatever. But lo and behold,
I woke up. Who the fuck pucked that there? But that's a different time. And that's only one generation.
Yeah.
And we are at the tail end of it. I actually said this in another podcast one time. I was lying in my bed one night, and I'll never forget this as long as I live. And I can't have been that old, so this is ingrained as a life memory because it's very vivid in my even the smells of going to my granny, if that makes sense to you. Like it's ingrained in my head. I can remember the blankets. We were lying in bed, and the next thing a cop come in to our bedroom. I was in the top bunk, my brother in the bottom bunk. One of them scooped me up and goes, "We're gone. Let's go on." And I could hear him shouting. My dad was going, "What's going on? What's going on?" And back then the doors didn't lock. Like you didn't lock the door. They were just walking in. It was a bomb. Was 4 doors up, and when we came out, I could see this like wee robot thing, like a wee tracks thing. I could just remember the lorries and it all come up round the front, and they're all in, and we were getting evacuated down to the other side of the housing estate. And we, luckily, my granny lived down the other side, and we went, and the three of us, my two wee sisters and me, were put in bed. I can still remember like the blanket, the scenario, because I was like, "There's a bomb up at our house." Like,
but you nearly laugh about it now. You nearly laugh about them things now and be like, "All right, you mind the time of scooped up," but at that time, that was a real thing. Like, there's a potential that there would have been a bomb going off in somebody's house or underneath a car or whatever else. So the reality of that there is very different.
And you know how times are changing. Nobody batted an eyelid. Nobody said anything. Nothing was in the paper, and nobody condoned anything. Nobody, Now, if something happens, everyone, and I think everyone with the right mind, there's still always that small percentage we always say that want to keep the they just want mayhem and thing. But like, and not to pick certain things, but a young policeman was attacked while he was up training footballers up at a thing.
I know about that, yes.
And
I followed up on that.
The absolute disgust through the whole entire community that something like this could happen, and now and something that was a norm and a given and not a norm and a given, but something that was not the same as when. That's how things are changing, and that's why I have good hope for the young. But also see social media. I'm laughing at this because you talk about segregation. We segregate. So we went to a Catholic school, then I went to a mixed school, and I had never met a Protestant till I went to a mixed school. And I swear to they were going to have horns in their head.
No, it's the eyes. The eyes are closer together.
I know, but that sounds so silly, right? And it was, but the similarities in the past, like we're talking about, we've religious differences, and yours are more obvious because they're color differences, right? But they're not more. They're not. Once you actually go, geez, he's dead on, or I'm playing rugby with him next week, and then you realize. This is all a fugazi. This is all a pile of because, then you realise that my biggest thing was integrating. And that's why I went to that, because I was like, the separation in housing and keeping in different areas and different schools made me believe that these people were evil without ever knowing anything, right? And then all through my rugby life I played, I couldn't tell you who was what. I could tell you by name because we know by name, but some names you don't know, and then you don't. But I can tell you one thing: we used to slag the absolute life out of each other, and the names we used to call each other, people would have said that was, but this was the banter that we used to have, you know, and back and forth, and like we'd have had that. But
What about the boy who used to drive us home from the car wash? Will I name him? Used to say, "Hey, you be fiendings," all the time.
But
Hey,
this
you
was-
be fiendings.
but
I know those words.
Aye,
heard
but
he was a
and then-
mate of ours.
yeah.
That was
and then
tucked
I would
very-
have cleaned something, and I step back and goes, Jesus, that's a bit more Protestant looking. But that was because we had that level of banter with each other.
Yeah.
Things can be said now, and people are so weary of what, you know. I always say, where's your heart when you say something? If there's a malice in you when you're saying something, then that's what we need to be careful of now. Mm-hmm. We're getting so in the world, and we do need to be right and right in what we say and right in what we say, because we're upsetting people, or we're you know, there's years of hurt or things like that there. And maybe on this podcast, us talking about this, and people will say it, realize the heart and what we're saying. But there's times when people say something and you get a glimpse of who they are, and it's not good. It's not a good glimpse. Mm-hmm. You know it's in their heart. So I always say, sometimes I always be so worried on social media, because I am the worst person. I come out with things without, there's no filter in my head, and I say something and I'm like, someday, and I say, but the one constant thing I always have in my head is, I don't have hate for anyone. I'm not a sectarian. I'm not a racist person. I'm you know, like, I can be a dick, and I could have come out with things at time if somebody ever caught that, or I said that thing at a time, you know, and it wasn't because my thought pattern is just something that I've said. Mm-hmm. If I was caught at that time and that was shown again, it would put me in a bad light. Mm-hmm. But like, I think everyone, I genuinely think if anyone could ever say they haven't said something at a time, that if it was caught on the one-off, it wouldn't show you in a bad light. But I would say in general how people are, and that's why it was. But we've had conversations, and we're talking about this, and it's like a parallel. It is. It has so many similarities in that, and it does relate to that. And we always be like, oh, we shouldn't touch. We get a lot of politicians, especially around this time of year, where they want the reach, so the message, and we're like, we're hands off, because we don't bother that. But no, it's good to have you here, because it's good to hear somebody that actually has lived, you know, coming here and seeing this, with experiencing their own civil rights, you know, at home, and coming here and seeing how we, you know, as a culture, how we're coming on.
I actually tried to get on the policing board several times, and I got to the first level one time. But you know, I know every place is who you know.
Yeah.
You know, and my view of thinking of getting on it was because I thought I would have a different perspective.
Yeah.
You know,
an impartial view of that.
Yeah, because you know, I worked with, you know, I've worked with quite a few of the policing board with the police on certain. They had different groups related to the ethnic minorities, and I was working with them on a couple of those organizations, and you know, I know quite a few police anyway, because some of them live not too far from me, and you know, we would talk back and forth about different things. And
Are you sure you're not in the CIA or something?
No.
Out in Saudi working in IT was all in cover. I reckon you're. What do you think? I've seen enough movies.
No. Like for example, you know, I don't know if about 7 or 8 years ago, there was a big mess that was going on in Belfast, and you know, they always have the helicopters and stuff, you know, videoing and stuff, and some people threw some bricks down on these police, and you know, see, in America, you know, whether it's not that I support policing completely, you know, in terms of America, because you got that 10% that's bad, but see, over here, you know, they let people get away with it. You know, you videoing them, and you know, you see who actually dropped the bricks on these policemen's head. And you know, they're not arrested. You know, that's one thing about Americans. Sometimes when if you go in there, when they go in, they not gonna sit around and tap dance around.
Yeah,
you know,
they're gonna clear shit out.
You know, you look at what's going on. You know, you go look at stuff that's going on in Derry or Londonderry, whichever way you want to call it, and you see trucks being burned and all that. That will not happen in America. It will not happen. You know, even though, like I say, there's some issues related to American police. Mm-hmm. But you will not see that they're going to sit there and let.
But that here.
That, no, I totally understand.
Politicians here don't unite. You know, there's a thing. There is a thing here, and it's a weird thing now, because I be out in Spain a lot, and two of the guys I know are police out there, and anywhere we go, they are held in quite high regard in their community. They are, where we hold doctors and we hold solicitors, we have this level of respect, and not respect, but you know what I mean. They hold positions in the community that people would look in Spain. That is a position of authority, but also there comes a level of respect with it.
Yeah,
and people are like, hey, Jose's in the police locale, and he's a good guy, and he's a good job. You need any problems, you speak to him. So it's here, and America has it too because of the history that they had. That people look at certain jobs like that, and they don't give it the respect. So when they go out, they're almost saying like, "Oh, that's part and parcel of your job. Why should that be part and parcel? Why should the petrol bomb be thrown at you while you're trying?" Like, the funny thing about it is, the people that throw these things, right? If something was going terribly wrong and they're in trouble, the first thing they're going to do is ring the police, like. And that is the most ironic thing about it. And on here, we've given them a lot of slating. We've actually give a lot of praise, in the way some of the things have been handled, and the way some of the things have been mishandled, So, but it's, I think, until you get to a place where, and I think this is a good sign in a culture, that if a police and a court system is respected, that they've earned it. They have to have earned it. Like, then it shows you that things are in a lot better of a place, And maybe I'm giving that a glamorized view of Spain, but I would say other countries around the world that they have it. They have a good balance. You're out in Australia or New Zealand. That's a respected job out there. They're not around here, and you go,
But between petrol bombs and throwing bricks on police's heads, have you enjoyed living?
Yeah. Well, let me just say one other point. I mean, like, this is why I feel as though they don't really realize the luck, how lucky they are. Because over here, you've got you all use the water cannons, whereas in America, they're using bullets.
Yeah.
And even, 'cause I know a lot of the police, and I know that even when they use the water cannons, they have to go to the ombudsman because they got to go through all of this crap related to what was the pressure of the water and all of this. I know all of the background. I'm saying, I'd rather get hit with some water than to get hit with a gun.
But there's look, listen, if you
Rubber
know,
bullet.
but this is the thing about this here, right? If you know how sharp the teeth in the dog is, you ain't going to want to get bit. So, like, they know they can stand around, and they know there's too much bollocks that they have to go through, that like the chances, and then if they see a can roll in, they'll all disperse, right? But there's nothing funnier than watching a man get absolutely lifted off the roof of a car by a water can. but what I'm saying is, you start gathering in America, and fuck me, it could go absolutely south, like, because have you ever seen the clip of the Florida sheriff talking about the home invasion? And he's like, look, obviously one of you have shot somebody. You haven't come forward. You're in a bit of trouble. You won't get in trouble here in the state of Florida because we encourage you to shoot. But if you want to come on the weekend, we will give you shooting practice so that when you shoot them, you'll shoot them dead, and it'll save the taxpayer money.
Yeah.
And I was like, right, first and foremost, what sort of, it's crazy that he can come out, but he's right. He's right, because now what's going to happen is, how often is someone going to go around and break into someone's home if they know that they're going to get shot?
Yeah.
If you have that, and like, that's what I'm saying to you. Like, we have serial offenders here that broke into 14, 15 people's houses, and people don't know the untold damage that it leaves. They think, they stole a few pounds. There's people.
They've broke the window and cut themselves, and then they've sued off the person that owns the house. Right. That's what's happened.
But that's how messed up it is here. But you're right. Like,
yeah.
But tell me. Mm-hmm. Yourself, have you experienced much racial abuse when you come to Northern Ireland? Because I know I'm going to give you a conversation later on about how I've witnessed it years ago. But have you had much bother?
No, it happened one time when I had first got here, and my wife told me, don't act like I was back in America, because I was getting ready to go back and I play baseball. I was getting ready to go back to the house and get a baseball bat and
give him a good weapon.
But you're right, huh? You got chipped. You were about what?
It was right during the 12th, and we was going down, down to watch, the celebration, and it was some young drunken guys who were tried to make some comments and made a couple of slurred comments that I didn't like, but I decided to just to overlook it. But other than that, I've never had any major problems. My daughters have had a couple of problems, but the schools have actually taken care of that in both instances. There was one instance that my daughter had that happened at her house. She was moving, and a local Northern Ireland person made some very nasty comments, and so she called the police, and I was actually going to pick her up to bring her back to my house, but she knew how I was, so she wouldn't let me in the house. So till the police came, and when the police came, the male policeman was pretty nasty to a certain extent. The female policewoman really was very fair in relationship to the problem that had occurred. And what was happening is the comments that were made to my daughter, she actually called my wife and was talking to her on the phone, and the policeman who was up there, he heard her talking and pretty much tried to side with the person who had been making the negative, nigger type comments to my daughter, and so I actually took it to the ombudsman, and we had and they didn't get rid of him, but they let him know that this is not the way you're supposed to be acting, and I had it documented.
But there's a part of me that's, in a way, like we all know how, like,
Well, just one comment. You remember the George Floyd? I was actually there for the George Floyd peaceful protest, and I actually spoke at the event, and the police were coming out. They came out before the event actually started, and they stopped and asked me, all these questions, and I pretty much had to tell them, see, he thought I was probably an immigrant or a migrant, a refugee, and I just said, look, you want my U.S. passport or you want my Irish passport? I really don't care what you want. You want to write a ticket? Write it, And so, he wrote a ticket and stuff, but if you followed up on it, they all had to apologize because they had discriminated against us when we did that peaceful protest.
You got arrested?
Not arrested, but I just got a ticket, a fine.
Like a disturbing of the peace or what? Or
it was related to, because it was right around the time of COVID.
Oh, right. Okay.
But the thing about it is the group that put the protest together, they marked off that the distance between the people was double what the original one was supposed to be. So it was more than just, it's supposed to be 6 feet. It was 12 feet.
Yeah. It doesn't matter now. We're all looking back at it and saying you give people out fines while you were attending parties and you were attending this, that, and the other. Like, it, Jesus, it was a stupid time. But
it was a double standard, because I was, if you check out, I was on TV quite a bit with BBC and TV talking, because they were talking to me. Probably because I was an American also, and I was there. But I highlighted the fact that the week before there was a whole group up in Newcastle because the weather was so good, and they gave nobody tickets. The week after, there was a lot of the UDA guys and stuff there thinking that we were going to be there the next week because there had been a lot of protests in London related to statues being knocked down for people who used to be slave owners. Yeah. And see, so they thought, so they were doing a protest the next week related to, protecting the statues. And they thought that we were going to be there, which we weren't. And the police gave nobody a ticket, and so that was brought up, and that's why, they had an internal investigation related to in the PSNI. And they had to come back and state that, yes, there was a double standard. They discriminated. And the police ombudsman did a full report and said the exact same thing. So they had to end up apologizing. Over here, y'all do a lot of apologies. People, I'm not interested in apologies. Just admit the fact that you're going to correct what you've done wrong. I don't need an apology.
The only thing, when they're embarrassed and they have to make public apologies, somebody's getting slapped on the wrist somewhere to improve, and maybe if a situation like that arose again, that they would, not that I would be defending, because I get what you're saying. A paramilitary group's going to come out one week and it's no problem, and people are going to hold a peaceful protest next week, and then it becomes an issue. It almost feels like this conversation doesn't change. We think we're getting better, and even America thinks that, they're getting better, and then things happen to show things that it's not that it's not gone away. The George Floyd created that massive Black Lives Matter movement. You know, for us, and when you're talking about things like that, but I actually, the reason I said this to you is because for a lot of younger ones now, you know, Northern Ireland as a whole, and it's now starting to experience more problems with mass immigration and how they're finding their way forward with new religions and different things. But I remember when I was younger, and we were in primary school. I had a very close friend who was mixed race, and he was the only mixed race child in our school, and it like and the, you know, it always remind me of the Japanese old proverb of the nail that sticks out is going to have the most bother, and only he was a big boy and a strong boy. Like, you mess with him, you know, and almost a part of me was like, he had to be like that, because he did get, and I would like to think that we're pretty tolerant culture, and we're a good culture, because I bring you on to another thing, and I want to ask you, because the reason I asked you your experience was, and he did have a lot of hassle, you know, not anywhere around us, not anywhere around our team, because people knew what he's like. You know, he's a big boy, athletic boy. You wanna give him shit, you're gonna get a bang.
It wasn't even that. It was, we got on with him.
Ah.
Like, he was a good lad. He was a great
We all
fella.
grew up together. We
all grew up together.
We actually didn't know. This is what I'm saying about living together and grew up, because we all went to the
Same school.
You
Grew up
don't-
together. There's
you
no
don't-
difference.
Aye, it's only like other schools that we want to do things, somebody else would say something. We're like, we didn't realize there was a difference. You know, you realize there's different, but it wasn't conscious in my mind. I'll tell you the exact same thing. My mom's from London, and she has a very strong London accent, and I didn't know she had a different accent until I was older. Does that sound? Because it's all I knew. So I didn't know till the point I looked around and I was like, oh fuck, that's right, she does have. And then this happened, and I seen that, and I was like, but the reason I'm saying that to you is because I remember one time this Canadian tourist was here, and he wrote a report, and he was a white guy, and he wrote a report, and he says Northern Ireland's the most racist place he's ever been to in his life, and that he had and it was homophobic and racist towards him. And I was like, call me bad, but I didn't believe what he was saying. I was like, Northern Ireland is too caught up in fighting each other to have enough time to go down this. But maybe, you see, this is what I'm saying. Maybe that's the blinkered view that I'm only given from my knowledge. And maybe that guy was bang on. Maybe I was completely wrong. But that's why I wanted to ask you how it was for you settling back here, and like, you know, what did you experience? Now, I know we're going through a very transitional period here where, like, you know, when you were here, and that's not a long time ago, when you come here in the 90s, there wouldn't have been many black men.
Yeah.
But now, you know, if you were up, you wouldn't be, it wouldn't be the only person, you know what I mean? It wouldn't be, you know, you're different because there's so many different races now in Northern, over the last 30 years. That's how quick it's changed.
Well, one of the things that I've done, I mean, I work with a lot of charities. And one of the charities is a charity called ASONI, which is African Community Support Organization. And, you know, one of the things that we would do, I worked with for about 15 years, is we would work with government organizations to help, you know, people who are coming in from different, you know, the different ethnic minority countries to blend in and understand, you know, what benefits they could get and how to accept the culture here, and to hopefully get, you know, people here to understand and accept, you know, their culture also. You know, I've worked with Fair Trade, and I work with Tiny Life, the premature baby. I'm still with with Fair Trade. I'm on the Lisburn and the Belfast Fair Trade community. We actually started it up about 15 years ago, and I still work with
Fair
them.
Trade's that looks after for sourcing stuff.
Yes,
there's
because a lot of it comes from
Yeah.
smaller countries where the big companies
Yeah.
don't give the benefit to those countries, you know.
and a lot of war-torn countries,
Yeah.
diamond stuff that's been
Yeah.
polluted and pilfered and stuff like that. So they're once it gets to fair trade, because I know that's massive in the jewelry industry. That they if fair trade say, look, listen, this isn't Sierra Leone diamond. This
Yeah.
is, you know, stuff like that there. But
But like the bananas and
Yeah.
you know, coffee and all of those type of things, you know, we we try to push, not push, but we
And it
try
has
to get them to.
it's made a lot of conglomerates have to change stuff they stock, stuff they
Yeah.
like, at the start they were like, you'll never get anywhere. I
Yeah.
remember when that was coming about, you'll never get anywhere, and now there a lot of them, it's nearly become like that's the standard now. You must be fair trade, which is brilliant. So like you obviously do a lot. You obviously put a lot back into the community. You've listed about 4 or 5 different charities and working with ombuds and working in thing. So like you've rightly integrated into the community. Would you call here your home?
Pretty much. Yeah. I mean, I actually did quite a bit with one of the churches I go to. I mean, it's not a question. It is as a Protestant church, but it's not a question whether I'm Protestant or Catholic. I'm a Baptist technically from American standpoint. And the church that I was going to was Legacurry, and they would send people out to Burkina Faso to drill for water because people couldn't drink. The water was so bad there, and I decided to go raise my hand and go there and help. I went there around 3 or 4 times there, and
where is that in North Africa?
Yeah, North Africa. It's not the place to go to now, but when I was there, it wasn't as bad as it is right now. But it was a place where I just enjoyed the fact that I was able to provide with the church helping out because we benefit from the fact that we forget about the fact of how easy it is for us to drink good clean water and stuff like that, and then you go out there and they're just looking at one of the cups that plastic bottles that you drink and you putting it in the trash, and they're running there to get that because that's the only thing they'll be able to get so that they can actually drink water out of anything. Yeah. And so, I mean, I really enjoyed being able to give back.
There must have been a great feeling that if you go out there and you install mine, or there must have been a great sense of pride and because a lot of the churches do amazing missionary work. There was an amazing woman here locally, Maud, and she actually got shot out and thing, but the amount of mission work done was absolutely incredible. But
one thing you said, you were talking about your cousin, your aunt, something from Canada who you hadn't seen in years. You made a comment a couple of ago. When I went to my last, just let you know how old I am. I went to my 50th class anniversary, high school class reunion a couple of years ago, and and like I say, it was integrated, and we had quite several of the whites who had been integrated, and they actually came, and it just highlighted how you got to overlook sometimes the mentality that's not actually what you thought, what you would really like to be. They actually came there and enjoyed the event, and looking forward to having our 55th Earth one. They already started looking for something like that to see people, who are still around get together again.
Yeah.
And do you go back to Norfolk much?
I go back every year, because I bought a house for my mother and my mother and father back in the 1990s. That was when I was doing well working overseas. So and I just felt that they had done so much to help me to be able to. I got a twin brother too, who we went to college, and my sister went to college, and they had to struggle because times were tough then, and it's always still been a double standard. Black people are doing better than they used to do, but you'll never catch up from what happened in slavery. You look at America. You got a few blacks that are millionaires and billionaires, but if you look at the relationship, like I keep saying, you'll never catch up. You just got to be happy with what you get.
Do you think that? Do you think they'll never catch up?
Yes. You'll never catch up. You can't look at what somebody, you got 400 or 500 years where, they got all of the, you look at America, how much property because most of the stuff is based on, real estate and property, and back in those days, they discriminated in terms of even being able to even buy property. And even when my father was in the military and they had the GI Bill, the banks still discriminated against them, and the government was supposed to be helping to get them money so that they could buy property.
But the reason I asked you that is, and because it make me sad to think that things can't level out or change, because America's only about 300 years old as it is now. It was Native America before 1700, before Christopher Columbus and all went out.
Yeah.
So And you're talking about back then, 40 and 50 years ago. There's a massive change now. Like, you know, you wouldn't have that same issue that you might have new issues or less, but things are changing in a short. You couldn't when they were integrating the school. If I told you there was going to be a black president within your lifetime, you may have struggled to believe that.
Yes, I agree.
So things have changed, and it would be
Yes.
sad to think that it'll never catch up, or it'll never be just, you know, if your skill set, who you are, is what determines your future, because it almost presets for younger black children that you can achieve that, where you can go to the highest position in the land. There's nothing off the table.
I agree with you 100%. I mean, but even related to, even related to Obama, getting 8 years, which was good. The reasons why, who was it? Who was it? The lady,
Podolsky.
Clinton.
Oakland, yeah.
Hillary. The reason why Hillary Clinton, didn't get it is partly because America, a lot of the Americans who didn't vote, who hadn't been voting for years, were upset that Obama had won 2 times. It still goes back to race, no matter what you say. Related to the Republicans and the Democrats. I normally vote Democrat. Now this year I don't know what I want to vote, because neither one of them, they both of them are a joke to me. You go with Trump or you go with Biden. Biden can't even remember what his name is sometimes.
He's not a well person.
He's not well.
I my biggest weirdest thing about this is the people gloss over that this man's ill.
Yeah.
He is literally suffering from some sort of Alzheimer's or dementia in front of the eyes, in the strongest position, and I find it highlights the puppet politician role, as in the wealthy people are behind.
That's right.
But the fact that in the forefront of everything is an ill person, and nobody has seemed to have addressed this, is to me, I'm like, is people just like, does nobody see that this is an elderly old man, that he's ill, that he's in the highest powerful position in the world, that he's got nuclear codes, that this man's not well?
The Democrats can't come up with somebody better than that. That's the question, is, whether it's the Democrats or whether it's an independent. You need somebody who's supposed to be representing the strongest country in the world, and it just makes you scratch your head.
You know what I'm actually thinking here too, Reggie? For staying away from politics, we've done a right old job of running around here. But then, so look, Reggie, we're, where's life for you now? Your young girls are growing up. Have you any grandchildren?
Oh no, not yet. No. Not yet. No grandchildren yet. But hopefully they'll get there soon. But it's been, like I say, it's been a good life for me. I mean, the fact that I was lucky enough to actually even start working overseas, and I didn't think I was going to do that, And I've met quite a few nice people. I mean, my best friend is. You remember the movie The Bodyguard? My best friend is the saxophone player, Kurt Whalen.
Right.
Yeah, and in fact, I talk to him almost every other day. We talk on WhatsApp and all that, and he actually came over here in 2014 and did a free concert. He came over to visit me because I had visited him at his home in Memphis. We actually met in 1979 when I was working in Houston. He was playing at a
Memphis
club,
like?
In Houston. He's from Memphis, but I met him. He was going to school in Houston, and I was working for Exxon down there, and he was playing at a club, and we met up, and at that time he wasn't that star, but he got picked up by Bob James, and then we just kept in contact with each other, even when I was working over in Saudi Arabia, and then then he became real. I wouldn't say famous, but he became real popular. And because I actually met Whitney Houston through him, because one time I flew in from Saudi Arabia, and I always would try to find out where he's playing at, and I'd say if I got time, I was making good money, so if he was in a different place, I could afford to fly over. Even if I fly into Norfolk, if he said, "Oh, I'm in Houston," or "I'm in this place," I would fly over and catch him playing. And he said, "Oh, I'm up in Boston, playing with Whitney," and this is when she was just started dating, what was that?
Bobby Brown?
Yeah, she had just, because I didn't meet him, but he was there. And he said, if you can get up to Boston, I got free tickets for you. So I flew up there and met her and saw him again. And like I said, we've been good friends, and I'm trying to get him to come back. He said he wants to come back because he actually did a memorial for my mother when she passed away. He was actually in Norfolk that weekend of the funeral that my mother passed away, and he did a memorial for her. And he actually did a memorial for me for my birthday this year. You know, I turned 70, and he did a video clip, talking about all of our 35, 40 years of knowing each other.
Yeah.
So I've been lucky. I mean,
You're saying that like you're done. You're not done yet.
No, I'm not done yet. No, then I would say I've got good local friends here. You know, I mean, I've known Robin Elliott for around 14 years. We've been good friends. In fact, he was helping me out when Kurt came here, because he actually did a couple of interviews with Kurt when he was here. And last year I met James Martin, and because he'd won the Oscar, and I met him at the U.S. Consulate 4th of July event, where they don't invite any Americans normally, but they invite me. Because I complained so much. I said, I've been working overseas for 40-some years, and I've had good relationships with the consulates and embassies, especially in Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
I was there during the Gulf War, and so.
Oh shit! Right, no.
Yeah, and I used to go up to the front line with, where they were fighting, and because then we would invite them back down to our houses, during that time. So. But I had good relationships, because one time we complained with the U.S. government, U.S. consulate in the embassy in Dhahran, because they didn't provide us with the gas masks, and the other countries were providing gas masks for their people, and so we had to we voiced a highly complaint, and then about 2 or 3 days later we got gas masks.
But that is not a
because all the military people were getting masks, but then I said we're civilians, you're Americans, what are you supposed to be supporting us also? And when it got on CNN News, then we actually got it.
You've lived. You need to start writing memoirs of all this. Oh, by the way, I was during the Gulf War. I was out in, I was in the Gulf when the Gulf War was going on.
Yeah.
So,
I got a piece of a Scud missile if you want to see one too.
Oh, it doesn't surprise me, Reggie.
I put it up on my camera. My wife doesn't like seeing it up there, so
yeah.
And well, tell me this. So, what you're integrated thing? What do you do now as your downtime? You work with a lot of different charities, and
well, I work part time at a bakery, because my father was a cook in the military, and I really like cooking and baking, and I actually had a cafe in Lisbon for a couple of years, and it was more pretty much American type, because I like to bake and stuff. And at my house, I might invite you to the house one time. I've actually got a smoker that I built myself.
You had me on a low. I don't know if you'd know this to look at me, but I would enjoy a good smoked barbecue.
Because I smoke my turkeys, I smoke my ribs and stuff. And
so for a lot of people, Virginia, places like that, the smoking, that's the home of the,
barbecuing and stuff like that. Yeah.
Me and my brother, we actually made a smoker as well.
Yeah.
So my uncle does a lot of fishing.
Yeah.
And he smokes his own salmon.
Yeah.
So
remember the first batch?
He had said about smoking,
Yeah.
making a smoker. So me and my brother, we welded up 2 drums and smoker, but
Yeah.
salmon was nice now.
Not the first batch. Do you remember?
It's lovely.
Do you remember how he smoked it? Put far too much stuff in it and it was too close. Remember the first one?
Yeah.
But you have a smoker, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Let me just give you that. It's actually built off of a commercial refrigerator, So that means I got plenty of space, and then I got the smoking end on the end of it.
What are we talking? Are we brisket, ribs?
Brisket, ribs. I smoke my turkeys. I haven't cooked a turkey in the oven in about 20 some years. And I also have a turkey fryer. See, Americans, we fry turkeys also. So I may have lived over here for these many years, but I bring my equipment from America when I need to.
Yeah.
And what sort of rubs are we? Is there bourbon? What are we into here? Just to give me a clear idea of what I can expect when
Stop, because you're making me hungry.
So at the moment, you're working part time and you're still in Belfast. You're working with the charities and all's good.
Yeah, everything's good. Everybody keeps saying, I'm cutting my grass, and they say, why don't you have a riding lawnmower yet? I said, no, I don't need a riding lawnmower. I'm strong enough to be able to push a lawnmower. I can keep cutting my grass. Okay, I'm fine.
Well, I've thoroughly enjoyed talking to you,
Yeah.
and it was great to have you up, and it was great to have you at the live show.
Yeah.
You know, we had a wee chat after. We didn't
Yeah.
get the chat much, but it was good to have you. But it was great to have you here, and I'd like to keep in touch. And
Yeah, we
and,
definitely will. Like I said,
that
when I have my,
smoker,
when I have my
Arrange
barbecue,
a barbecue date.
I'm going to call you.
You fire up the dates, Reggie, and we'll be there. But look, I want to thank you very much for coming up, and I want to thank you for sharing your journey with us, and it's been good crack.
Good, great.
Thank you very much, Reggie. Thank you.
Hope you enjoyed it.